Ladies and gentlemen, that is right. It is official. Season 3 is here. Now, as far as season 3 goes, I must admit it's probably been one of the most confusing seasons that we have had so far because of the different timings of all of the updates. We had one update for Cold War. Tonight we had an update for Warzone. On top of that, we have the Warzone events going on at different times. So in this video, I'm going to go over everything from Black Ops Cold War to Warzone to the weapon changes in Cold War to Warzone. And on top of that, some of the event stuff that you need to be updated on, so you know everything that's going on in both games. And what I'm going to do is put timestamps down below so that if you just want to check out one thing, for example, the weapon changes in Warzone, you can just click to that section of the video and I won't be wasting any of your time. On top of this, I'm also going to be doing a battle pass giveaway on my Twitter, which is linked down in the description. Go follow me on Twitter. Later today, I'll have a little giveaway over there so some of you can win some battle passes. But for now, let's dive into it, starting off with Cold War and then later on moving into Warzone. Again, timestamps down below. So starting things out, we're going to dive right into multiplayer. And the first thing you're going to notice is this cool new background, which takes place on Yamantau, which is just so happens to be the newest playlist this week. So Yamantau 24/7 is taking place on the new map called Yamantau. And as far as this map goes, it's kind of like a combination of Summit from a bunch of different Black Ops games and Payload from Black Ops 4. There's kind of a lot of areas where you can go around and flank. There's two stories in the middle, but all in all, it kind of has the same sort of flank routes that Summit did. So more so like Summit, and the fact that it is very close quarters inside, which makes SMGs a great choice on this map. The second new map we have is also in a playlist called Diesel Face Off 24/7. The interesting thing about this map is it can be used as a 6v6 map, a 3v3 map, or a 2v2 map, obviously in gunfight. It's an interesting map. It takes place at a gas station out in the desert alongside like a little trailer park right behind it. It's an interesting map layout, and I'm curious what you guys think about this one. Now, the other playlist that we have, first of all, Sticks and Stones, fan favorite, hence why they added the ballistic knife with this update, which we'll dive into in a minute. Now, on top of this, we got Snipers Only Mosh Pit, Nuketown 24/7, Gunfight, Fireteam Mosh Pit, and that's pretty much it. So the big ones there are, of course, Diesel and Yamantau 24/7. Now, after this, if you go into the battle pass, I already have a full video on this. If you want to check it out, it'll be linked down in the description, or of course, after the video. But there's new weapons. So the first new weapon we have is the Swiss K31. This is kind of like an old school sniper rifle. Kind of reminds me of the Kar 98 from Modern Warfare. And as far as this one goes, I don't know how I feel about it yet. I haven't used it with attachments, so I don't really know how good its ADS can be. It may end up being pretty good in Warzone, but we'll have to see how it compares to the almighty Kar 98. After this, we have another one of my favorite weapons ever in a Call of Duty game, and that is the PPSH-41. This one's rare to be in Call of Duty games, but every time it is, I really enjoy it. And similarly in this game, it's got a really fast fire rate with high recoil and a large magazine. Now, on a map like Yamantau that has a lot of close quarters area, this thing shreds because of that really fast TTK. Now, the other side of this is at long range, it does have a lot of recoil. Now, I use this with no attachments, and it still was manageable, so I'm guessing once you have the right attachments, this thing is going to shred and probably be one of the better weapons in the game. Now, that is actually not the only weapons that were added today. As I mentioned earlier, we also have another new weapon, which is the ballistic knife. And to unlock this bad boy, you have to get a one-shot, one-kill medal and a melee kill in the same life in 15 different matches. I will say this is one of the harder challenges, but I think it's worth it because everyone loves the ballistic knife. Now, the other thing that you get from the battle pass is a new character called Wraith, which is kind of like the new bad guy and of course works for Perseus within the story. It's going to be really interesting to see what her story is once we get that season 3 cutscene. I'm guessing the reason why we haven't so far is because it has to do with the Verdansk thing happening tomorrow, which we will talk about later in the video. But this is actually not the only character that we got today. We got a good character, and that is of course Captain Price. Now, this character is going to require his own video because it takes a little bit to understand how it's possible that he can be an agent within a 1984 Call of Duty game. But like I said, we'll talk about that in the future. The other thing with operators is that you can now either choose a random operator, or say if you're like me and want to play as Park because you simp for Park, you can just go to Park and choose a random skin, and it will give you any random skin that you have unlocked for Park, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Speaking of things that are pretty cool, the other thing that they added that was a total surprise is in the barracks. Now, of course, in barracks, you have your normal leveling up that you have every single season, but the other thing that is new is there is now an arcade where you can play old Activision games like Boxing, River Raid, Pitfall, and these were interesting games because they were somewhat included in the reveal for Black Ops Cold War. So it's literally just like having little mini games that you can play while you wait for your friends to get online, which I find pretty cool. And in fact, if you go to your store right now, you can actually get another free one, which is called Skiing, in a free bundle. I don't know if they're planning on eventually charging for these things, but I certainly hope not. Now, the other thing that we have, of course, is zombies. So as far as zombies goes, once again, we got another new background, but in Outbreak, we have a new area called the Duga, which it's looking like is going to be a part of the new Warzone map, which we will talk about later in the video. Now, of course, other than this, we also have a new field upgrade called Toxic Growth, which summons a deadly growth of thorns in front of you that deals damage to enemies and slows them as well, which is pretty cool. Now, the other thing inside of zombies that is pretty cool that they added is you can actually now unlock weapons inside of zombies. So example, the sledgehammer here. Using melee weapons that has been pack-a-punch 3 times, get 250 kills. This is pretty cool because if you don't play multiplayer or you don't play Warzone and you want to unlock these weapons, you didn't really have an option before, but now you can unlock all these through zombies, and some of them may actually be easier through zombies. Moving into the weapon nerfs and buff side of things, keep in mind that this is just Cold War that we are talking about here. The Warzone weapons are balanced differently, and those patch notes will be later on in the video. As far as the weapon tuning though, for Cold War, the first weapon we have is quite a big nerf to the Stoner. They reduced the max damage from 42 to 38. They reduced the max range from 38.1 meters to 21.59 meters. On top of this, a slight increase to vertical recoil, a slight reduce to aim down sight speed, and then a couple of attachments in there as well. Now, the next one's interesting because it kind of got buffed and nerfed in different ways. So first of all, the max damage of the RPD was increased from 38 to 42. They reduced the range though from 50 meters to 20 meters, which is a massive nerf. They also reduced the maximum ammo capacity from 75 to 50. Again, pretty big nerf. And then again, a couple of adjustments to the barrels there. Then the final LMG, we got the M60. They reduced the max range from 76.2 meters to 20 meters. That is the biggest range nerf potentially ever in a Call of Duty game. They also reduced the aim down sight speed by 13.8%, and they increased the probability of horizontal view kick when hip firing, so a little bit harder to hit bullets when hip firing. So basically all of the LMGs got pretty big nerfs. Moving into shotguns, the first one we have is the Street Sweeper. They removed the one-shot kill potential, so that can just no longer happen with this weapon. They also decreased the max damage from 138 to 88, reduced the mid-range pellet damage from 6 to 5, and finally they reduced the damage bonus of the task force barrel. So a pretty big nerf to the Street Sweeper. Next shotgun is the Hauer 77. They increased the max range from 5.08 meters to 5.72 meters, so very small. They also reduced the range penalty of the task force barrel and reduced the damage bonus for the task force barrel as well, so kind of an interesting one there. Then finally, the shotgun Bravo. We have an increased mid-range damage from 9.14 meters to 10.16, so once again kind of small. Increased mid-range pellet damage from 2 to 3, and reduced the max damage from 118 to 108, so balancing across the board for shotguns. So the next one's kind of strange because it's all for attachments, but it's the FFAR. They reduced the recoil penalties with the task force barrel. Again, remember, this is only in Cold War, not Warzone. And then the 34 round mag, they increased the mag size to 38. They also reduced the reload penalty by 5%, and on top of that, they made it so that your aim down sight speed is 10% faster. The next one I find super interesting. It's for the Krig 6. They increased the headshot multiplier from 1.25 to 1.4, which is huge, and then they reduced the max damage from 35 to 33. And essentially what they are doing here is making headshots on this weapon more important. Also, for just assault rifles in general, they have improved the ADS move speed of the ultralight Contour M2 and the CMV mil-spec barrels for across the board, just for all of them. Moving into the tactical rifles, or the only tactical rifle, we have the Tactical Rifle Charlie. This one, they have reduced max range from 30.48 meters to 19.05, again pretty big. Increased burst delay from 0.216 to 0.233. After this, we have increased max damage from 51 to 52. Not a really big deal there. Increased headshot multiplier from 1.25 to 1.4. That is huge. And then some changes to the task force barrel. I don't know how this one is going to turn out. Yes, it's a huge range reduction, but that headshot multiplier is pretty massive. We'll have to wait and see. Now, the next one, I don't know how I feel about. This is for all SMGs. They reduce the sprint speed so that all pistols are now the fastest weapons to sprint with, but with specific attachments on an SMG, you can sprint as fast as pistols. So it's just kind of really changing up some of the attachments you can use on the SMGs so that you can move quickly. It's a strange way of trying to balance the SMGs. Let me know what you think down in the comments. So the last thing as far as the patch notes go is the movement. Now, if you read the patch notes, this is very confusing, but essentially what you need to know is that slide canceling essentially got nerfed a little bit. You can't do it quite as quickly as you used to. And I'm curious what you guys think about this one. I heard some people saying that they love this change, some people saying that they hate it. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. So as far as the Warzone update goes, the Warzone update happened last night, and we have a ton of weapon changes that we need to talk about because the entire meta has shifted for Warzone now. But you may be wondering, what is this screen you're looking at? So if you didn't already know, yesterday there was the part 1 of the destruction of Verdansk, and in that a nuke went off, and that is kind of what we're seeing in the background here. Now, as you can see at the very top there is a countdown to when the next event starts, which is at noon Pacific time or 3 p.m. Eastern time, or you can convert that to your time zone. So that countdown that you're seeing right now is probably not proper for when you're watching this video. Now, the other playlists are for what happened next. So as you can clearly see here, we have 3 different Rebirth playlists. And when you go on Rebirth right now, it is currently nighttime. You can see a nuclear explosion in the background. When you fly over the map, you can see some of the names changing and some Russian letters appearing. And essentially what this led us to was a website. This website was called rebirthfromtheashes.com, and it was very cryptic, and there were codes that you could put in. And I'm not going to go through that whole thing right now, but once you did, you received a bunch of different screenshots for what appear to be areas on the new Warzone map, a bunch of areas that don't currently exist in game. And eventually you would get to one that was very clearly a new gulag, which appears to be Standoff from Black Ops 2, which is of course a fan favorite map, and a map that's actually coming to Black Ops Cold War later on this season. So clearly this has to do with what's going on tomorrow. Speaking of which, at noon tomorrow, we have the second part of this event that will be taking place at noon. At the same time, once noon rolls around and assumably this new map comes out, we're also getting a brand new event in Warzone, which is called the Hunt for Adler. This is of course because Adler has been captured by Perseus, is being held in the 1984 area or time period, and that is assumably when the next map is going to take place, and we're going to be hunting for Adler on the map. So all of that takes place at noon tomorrow. I will be covering that in a completely separate video once that goes live, so make sure you stay tuned to the channel, hit that subscribe button, have notifications on, all of that jazz. As far as the other things that have changed in this update, first things first, Rose. They updated Rose skin, or at least they say they updated the Rose skin. It's very difficult to say because we can't play on Verdansk right now. In the menu, it doesn't look very different, but once we get in game, I guess we'll be able to see at that point. So as far as Warzone goes, there's a lot of weapon balancing here, and everything we're going to go through now is just for Warzone, not Cold War. Starting off with the Cold War AK-47. For this one, the recoil pattern has been adjusted, and essentially what they did is add less recoil, or reduce the recoil is, I guess, a better way of saying it. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays. It actually has a pretty good TTK. With less recoil, it might actually be pretty good. After this, we have the FARA-83. This one's interesting. They increased the minimum damage from 25 to 26. They decreased the maximum damage from 33 to 31. The maximum damage range increased by 17%, and the recoil pattern has been adjusted. And again, it should be a little bit easier of a recoil pattern. So all in all, making this weapon a little bit better. Now, the one that everyone has been waiting for, the FFAR. With this one, the maximum damage decreased from 30 to 27. The maximum damage range decreased by 15%. The neck damage multiplier changed from 1.1 to 1. The upper torso damage multiplier changed from 1.1 to 1, and the ADS speed decreased slightly. This weapon is no longer the best weapon in the game. This is a big nerf. This is what the weapon needed. It's no longer going to be that beast at short range and beat all the SMGs. So this is the nerf that people were asking for the FFAR. Now, the next one's probably one of the most interesting ones to me. The Groza got a nerf, the recoil got increased, the ADS speed decreased, and the upper torso damage multiplier changed from 1.3 to 1.1. Going into this update, I thought the Groza was going to be one of the best weapons. After it, it is now not. The way they said it in the patch notes is actually right. They're doing it as a precaution. They don't want it to be one of the best weapons in the game. Kind of surprising to me. After this, we have the Krig. This one got a buff. The head damage multiplier changed from a 1.4 to 1.5, neck damage multiplier from 1 to 1.3, and the upper torso damage from 1 to 1.1, and same with the lower torso. So basically, they're just making this thing deal more damage. The recoil should be similar. This might actually be pretty usable now, but I'm gonna have to give it a shot first to see how these multipliers work. Then we have the QBZ. This one got increased move speed. ADS move speed was also increased. The neck damage multiplier went up by 0.2, and the upper torso damage multiplier went up by 0.1. So again, just making this one a little bit better, should deal a little bit more damage, and you can move faster with it. Moving on to SMGs, the first one we have is the LC10. This one, the bullet velocity increased slightly, so in other words, it's easier to hit people at long range, making it so it's kind of like a better mid-range SMG. After this, the MAC-10. This is a surprising one to me. The max damage is decreased by 1. I don't know if that's enough to drastically change the TTK or not, but it should at least still be decent, I think. The only sniper rifle that was touched was the Pellington. The ADS speed increased and the raise time increased slightly. I don't think this is what the Pellington needed. I think it needed a bit more bullet velocity, but you can aim down sights with it faster now. After this, we have the AUG. So this one, the time between burst increased by 33%, which is a huge nerf. And also the neck damage multiplier was changed from 1.8 to 1.3. This is a really big nerf. The time to kill is a lot slower now. Also, the M16. This one, the time between burst increased by 10%. So again, pretty big deal, slower time to kill. And the neck damage decreased from 1.8 to 1.1. Again, they are trying to make these burst weapons not the meta anymore. And I think in this one, they actually did a pretty decent job at it. And then finally, the AMAX. The AMAX wasn't touched, but they said they're keeping a close eye on it. So it may be nerfed in the near future, which I think as of right now, it's probably one of the best ARs or even best weapons in the game. Now, they also made some changes to a bunch of different attachments. And if you want to check those out, you can either pause the screen here, or I will have the patch notes linked down below. It's just kind of a lot to read through, and I find it kind of boring. So yeah, you can either read it yourself now on screen or patch notes linked down below. So as far as what you're seeing here, this is only a portion of the update. The rest of it's going to come tomorrow at noon, so I will have a video updating you guys on that. However, a couple of other things that have changed. First of all, on PC, they added NVIDIA DLSS settings, which should make the game run a little bit smoother for those of you who are really trying to run it at really high settings. On top of this, they also changed a couple of things in game, specifically with ground loot. Now, all of the ground loot that you find will be Black Ops Cold War weapons, and the only blueprints that you will find will be legendary weapons. So that's a big change to the loot, and of course we saw in the picture earlier they will be changing the gulag as well, so it'll be interesting to see how that stuff changes. That'll all be happening tomorrow. I'll have videos on it, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel to stay up to date. But that has been the update. It's a pretty crazy one, and things are only going to get more crazy tomorrow, so I can't wait to bring you guys the content. Be sure to be subscribed, have notifications on, hit that like button if you enjoyed. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Check out my Twitter if you want to be a part of that giveaway, and thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace out. We are